All right, Leonard, let's dance.
So we're down to it. We're going to talk about these things called iterated or double or repeated integrals. We've already introed it in 14.1. I gave you the
Squeak
basis
for
of
me.
what this means, how we create these things. Now this section is about how we do them without adding up a whole bunch of rectangles and taking a limit, because that's really.
I gotta look inside
So just
the
like in Calc 1, we
military
start that
base
idea,
in
we
this
get an
college,
integral,
because
we
this is
just
what I
practice
know
standard
colleges look
derivatives.
like from
Now
16.
in Calc 3, we
So I'll often
practice
play a
what we
lot
did
of
to
this
set up.
local and
And now we're just gonna
non-local while
practice
I'm
doing
doing a
these double
review on
integrals.
these
I'll show
things,
you
because
exactly
one,
how
all
to do
three
it.
parts are here.
I'll
Name,
hopefully
concept, and some
show you the most important
marshmallow
pieces, 'cause when
on
I
a
was taking
definition
Calc
on
3,
some
my
slide stick,
teacher
slide
never
rule
told
that
us what to do with
it does
this.
this.
And that is the most
Like I said, I
important
never was
part.
taught this. I had to kind of
floundered
figure
all
that
through
stuff.
Calc
Oh,
3
yeah.
because
A lot of
this,
pressure in the
what
middle that day
R
about
does,
what you
how
can't
it's
know
set
when
up
somebody's
R, how to
securing
make
you
your
with where
W
you have
from
to be,
R
the
is
ladder,
the
the
hardest
gap
part.
on the math here.
If you know how to do integrals, so, and do you know how to do integrals? Then that's going to be pretty darn hard.
Pages and
If
pages
you don't.
of
If you do know how to do integrals, there's a number of
Feynman, you
integration
got
techniques.
Hawking,
There's
you
nothing
got
new.
Maxwell, you
know
got
how to do
Poncure,
integrals.
you
The
got
setup is
Dirac, you
the
got
most important
Bernoulli, you
part.
got
How to go
Bosine,
from given a random R
Boson,
to an
and
actual
Boson,
setup of double
well,
integral,
Boson
that's the
brain,
most
Jupiter
important piece I
brain.
can tell you. Once you set up the R correctly,
Civilizations,
you set up the integrals
Kardashian,
correctly,
you
the
got
rest
Kelvin,
follows
temperature
fine.
differentials of
But the
individual
setup is
states
important.
of
That's what we're going to focus
K,
on, is
D,
your ability
A,
to go
some
from a
Punzero
defined
stuff
region
that's
to a
heavy.
double integral. Does that make
It's
sense to you? That's
also
the
every
whole
step
point
of the
today.
saw
I'm not going to
crankcase,
spend a whole lot of
all the way
time
down to the
showing you
Atomos,
integration
not just
technique.
this,
Basically,
but
we're gonna
having the
focus on
one in
setup,
the mill
do
that
integrals
goes
as
to the belt
fast as
mechanics
possible,
and the
then
changing of the
answer.
motor.
Your
There are two
job
different
is to learn
operations that you
setup
might
and practice
gaze
integrals
over
later.
in terms of
That's my
the
goal for
speed in
today.
which you move
So
0 to
how do
1
we get there?
in these
Well, the
cyclical
first thing is to
integrals,
recognize what we did in
double
last section.
integrals,
For
triple
any
integrals.
function
On
of
one
two
page,
independent
you're still
variables,
looking at a double,
the
triple,
volume
three-dimensional
under that
object and
surface, verify that's the
one-dimensional,
surface. The volume under
two-dimensional,
that surface, but
three-dimensional,
over
why
a
3 goes to
specific
12,
region R
or 3 goes
is
to
the
9,
lattice.
and
That's
4
what a
goes
double
to
integral
12,
means.
or you'll
It's
get
giving us
2
the
parts on a
volume
half.
under
Both
a
have
surface.
charge.
Just like it's
Well,
single
the
integral
field
is
theory
area,
equation.
we're now extending the
Start in
dimension,
Army
so we're
Survival
extending the
or
dimension
Marine
here as well.
Combatives.
Like one dimension higher than area
From those
is
positions, you have a better set
integral
for,
higher
well,
than
cicadas,
single integral
mathematicians,
W
just because
gives
this
us
comes
volume.
up useful
That's
if
what we're playing at.
you know somebody
So,
had
I do
integrals.
wanna-
Oh, I
I
know a
wanna come
class
back
about
to this, though.
integrals.
What the
It's a great way to
DA
move that
stands
rock
for.
if I was
Back in
having problems
14.1
with how
last section,
that
we
graphing
went through
system
this.
works, because it's
We
basically
added
a
up a whole bunch of
wire,
areas
and that
of
wire is
rectangles.
also
Do
a
you recall
battery,
doing that?
right?
We
It's
went
0 and
along
1
with
to
the
housing
first
to the
X
light bulb at those
column and added up
speeds,
all the rectangles.
gravity,
The next one added
Earth,
up all the rectangles
9.8
on
meters
Y.
per second,
And
terminal
I
velocity,
stated something about
being a ball.
something called Fubini's theorem. I said, does it matter how we find area?
Aristotle's
Delta X
constant
times delta
physics,
Y or
Archimedes
delta Y times
theory,
delta X?
Newtonian balls, transfer
Doesn't matter.
energy into.
Well, that delta X times delta Y, that gave
So
us
a lot
the
of times
area
I catch a
those
lot of that
rectangles.
class stuff, and like I said, it's one of the benefits of this machinery for terminals,
And since that
especially going
multiplication,
through.
we
Every
find
rock
those
is the
areas
same,
in
but they
it.
have a singular variable, and they're on the pallet, moving their way down the
Here's what
stack.
this says.
Turns time, works that back a little bit
Here's what this
differently. Burnt rock.
The volume over a region
You don't
of
necessarily
function
need to
with two
factor it,
independent
but
variables,
it
basically the
certainly
volume under the
matters.
surface, given by the area of each rectangle.
Especially
Here
over
it is.
hours, 4 days,
Rectangle
over
along the
weeks
X,
on
or
things
sorry,
for 300 pounders, or actually they do get. They're saying they it's
southern
2
along
by
the Y,
10s
over
all day,
that
2 inch
the
thick,
area
and it's
of each
really just,
rectangle, all the
you know,
rectangles
they had
have the
that
same
one
area.
day
Does that make sense?
by graph on the overhead. Did one problem until you put up the camera, and then you kind of proved it, and it was like, well, that dries that shit up in a hurry. The winter day operations in the skid steer, or the skid steer operations at 0, and then some kid coming in with the mass gap for how that winter run should look in the 3-ring binder when you slip it into the chemical analysis for the safety guy for what happens when you get shit in your eye.
Delta A, dA equals dx dy. But wait. If delta A
My job is to do it like that, right? They'd hire you as a manager,
then what else could
supposed to be in the
dA
safety brief for today. I am your master mason today, gonna work through the saw programs. Lay them out from
Here's the thing about
the
it.
clipboard
That
in
means
that
that
version
for-
where I can spread it all across the table in an
For
entire
rectangular
matrix
regions,
of what that system in a condensed file, all these things look like in the double integral if you wanted to stay with phase orders and say the first order to the second order
we started this whole thing in
of
14.1.
what that goes. But realistically, it doesn't need to be Lapicant, well, I good, because I was going to go with the field theory, Einstein for beginners, which they really kind of start fundamentally just like that. Early step, different, but it's the same step.
Regions are going to look for you. So we're going to get to an example very shortly.
Causally,
but
same
how
step.
this is gonna look
It's hard to factor
an integral
to somebody
double
in the
over
class
R.
when they ask the
Some
question, because I
function's
can't
gonna
do it
be
for you.
defined.
I can't find that
dA,
heat. We could
that's
talk
fine.
about every hypothetical
That
matrix
R has to
in
be
the chess
defined.
game of
And so
E4
the
and
definition
Death
of R is
Contract Gambit of
nothing
every
besides.
one of those
We're gonna look
things.
at that
First step, second step, against competition, and any horseman gambit that comes in here
You're gonna
says
say,
middle
hey, you
phase
got
at
a
the
series of
stone mill.
points, all right? X
Integrals
gonna order
are
pairs
by a
with
standard
linear
model.
relation.
Right, I can build out a matrix of first three. Here's this with the positive version and a negative version of those things. So basically, those are all X's of names and definitions in the Military Joint Chiefs Staff Dictionary of Terms, or how those pages work out for the key. Go to the Play Mario, Doomslayer, Ultra Nightmare, 100% on page 3. Go slay the dragon on page 9. Come back, Mary Princess Peach. Drink the Kool-Aid, go down the rabbit hole, kill the rabbit, bang Alice, hit the bricks, move on, yell at the Hatter, tell him to change places.
Constants. It's got to go from X, one number, to another number, and Y, one number, to another number.
Fields are going to get real specific about, I know there's a terminal, I know there's a skid steer, piece of, well, there you got a loader, you got a dozer, you got an excavator, you got a log splitter out back, hell, you got a pressure washer talking about general relativity and volume reduction. I mean, yeah, X is going to be across the name. Here's the Army Barracks AR-15-0-1 and every category of that divergence, as it is and it's not. And when those are in those things and/or, it'll minimax its way down the game to the autonomous program of that system, to cloud to ground.
I also need to define Y. If Y equals C, horizontal line. If Y equals D, horizontal line. This right here is the rectangular region on the XY plane that I'm finding the volume over. So this thing shoots up, it intersects the surface, and I'm finding the volume of that rectangle being shot into space, connecting with our surface. Show of hands if you're okay with that one. So this right here tells you
AR-15 and take a flag.
It says X is bound by constants, Y is bound by constants. That's always going to give you a rectangle
flag.
on
Your
the
people
XY
use
plane.
flags? I can
Have I
work with
made
that.
that make sense to you?
Tags, flags,
really easy to see.
whatever
Just
comes in,
numbers here,
pans,
here, numbers
army,
here, for both
or
X and Y. Makes sense?
tangents, that's
So,
fine.
But wait. Because of this
Spartan or
relationship,
Xerxes.
that means that there's actually two
Got
ways
topology,
to
you
set
got
up
time,
any
you got a
double
system
integral.
about
Look
how
at
that's
it,
going to
look
go
at
in the
it.
fair
These
cost,
things are commutative.
the
I can
generals,
switch
and
this
how
around.
the land
That means
nav
that
goes
for every
with
double
the ones that
integral,
were
I have dx
outnumbered
dy,
and overmassed, but actually
dy
played
dx.
through and won. How? The numbers
So for
aren't,
every single one of these,
I mean, clearly they were. That's what had happened in the incident report of this second to that second. Here's what happened when the Tyrannosaurus loose got loose in that saw one night, because we've been working that arbor nut so hard, loading with rock. We never took it off, hadn't changed it, didn't do anything, but I certainly had nothing to do with that part of any of that when she got loose and tore up the building.
this region. No. This definition.
I wasn't
gives you
responsible for the
region.
cameras, but there was
This
one in there.
thing
I'm sure
is
stuff.
hidden. This
I'm
thing
sure
is
it
the
was
surface
reviewed.
of-
This,
it needs to be continuous
everything else in
surface.
the universe that
This
morning
thing
was
is
like,
the
get the fuck
surface
out of my
over that
office
region.
right now.
Does
I
that
have
make
shit to
sense?
do.
You never draw this ever. It's going to be in 3D.
There Mario was.
What we
Put a
do
little
draw
angle
pretty
here,
much every
little
time
angle
is the
here,
rectangular
little
shape.
angle
What
here,
we do draw is
and here, and he's in
that's
the
what we draw.
box.
Staying on the XY plane. That's really convenient because you're used to graphing lines and curves and rectangles. That's fine. We don't
Snowflake's
graph this.
good.
We do graph that.
Because I usually like start
So
in the
anyway,
top north. Give them a little cue. That way I don't have to do all this brute force work.
Choice to
Maybe a
make.
little bit of this, and then grind. The grind. Like when you have proof, isn't it? Catch you on the next one.
Because of the